So good morning, still morning, welcome. We are here to talk about critical topic for all of us, and it's all about people. Everything we do is for people, by people, and not in spite of people. So I am really excited to be part of this conversation with all of you. And Meredith Barnes-Cook, I'm a partner in Transformation Services, where I work on strategic advisory as well as contribute to our research. And if you want to each introduce yourselves, your organizations, and what you're focused on.
I'm Audrey Torrence. I am the founder and president of Best Search, and I'm here to bring 30 years of hiring insights across the P&C industry to this panel. And I have been a property casualty recruiter since 1995, first 5 years in Chicago with a small firm, next 15 years running my own firm, 10 years in a London firm, and now here I am again running Best Search.
Hi everyone, I'm Laurissa Berk. I'm the Director of Global and Experiential Education for UConn School of Business. So spent a number of years at the University of Connecticut in a variety of different roles. Spent most of my time with the Financial Risk Management Program when that program launched, building it out in size and scope. And currently my role is focused on giving our students real-world applications, tying and bridging the gap between industry and academia, and I do that in a variety of ways. So that's what I'm up to these days.
Super. And by way of my background, I'm celebrating, I think, 40 years in the industry. I'm one of the people who said I chose insurance as a career. I did. I started off, I worked at a retail agency when I was in college, and that's when I caught the insurance bug, so to speak. And so immediately after graduating, I spent 33 years at Liberty Mutual, where I had a chance to work, started off in claims and worked across the entire insurance life cycle in all lines of business. In the spirit of doing something different in the ecosystem, I also spent then 3 years at an AI startup that was selling to the insurance industry to guide them on kind of the problems to solve and how to go to market. And I've been part of the ReSource Pro family for about a year and a half. So again, thrilled to be here. So as you mentioned, the insurance industry is facing an ever-increasing pace of change. You know, we have this talent crisis of more and more of our tenured people are reaching the eligibility to have the option to retire over the next decade. And what we see from our research, that maybe, thank you for any of you who've participated in that, what we hear is retail agencies, brokers, and carriers are all planning over the next 1 to 3 years to add headcount, which is a huge challenge because research also shows some of the newer entrants into the workforce. We have 5 generations in the workforce, and in about 4 years we'll have 6. Because the older generations, the 70, 75 plus, fewer of them are retiring now. More are consciously choosing, according to the federal government, more are choosing to stay in the workforce, and we've got Generation Alpha showing up soon. So as part of all that, the younger generations are not necessarily as interested in an insurance career, which is a challenge. And at the same time, all the products are diversifying. You've got new products are coming in, new participants in the insurance ecosystem and emerging, and the M&A. And then technology is tossing, both a mix of hype and reality at all of you. Of like real solutions to solve real problems versus a little bit of kind of like sparkle and bling and not sure what to do with it. So it's offering us opportunities on how we need to have the opportunity to rethink how we hire and how we develop talent, but it's also making it a challenge because it's also necessitating everyone to keeping an eye on their organization, their roles, their structure to say, what we're doing today, does that still make sense, or do we need to start shifting internally? And so throughout all of this, some of the leading research out there says, while we think about hiring as my husband's a retired chef, but I'll say, and he loves like doing soups and things because it's very creative, just kind of throw anything in the pot and see what happens. He doesn't like baking because it's a science, precision. If you're off by a teaspoon, the whole outcome may be different. And so the challenge is we all need to be making soup. We need to be thinking about our people as kind of more in that amalgam, because adaptability is shown as the leading driver of successful performance as well as retention. I mean, I remember many, many years ago when a slightly frustrated employee said to me, "That's not in my job description." And I'd say, "Give me 5 minutes, it will be." Well, that's now our reality. Yeah, I did, sorry. HR would not be happy with me. But that's really our reality, right? And even when you're going to market and you're looking to hire, what you think the role is when you initially put that job posting out versus what you actually need them to do when they arrive, I saw some head nods. It changes, and that's a good thing, but it means how we hire, we have to think about people who are all about that they're not just capable of changing, they want to change. So, in our panel intro that was in the brochureware, et cetera, for this event, we talked about the modern insurance professional. I'd love to hear from each of you, who is that? What is that? Maybe Audrey, will start with you.
Sure. The modern insurance professional is someone who is like heads up and aware. And what I mean by that is, that is a person who knows within their company or their agency, their MGA, their TPA, whatever insurance entity they work for, what is their role in their company and how does their role fit into the ecosystem and the workflow of their company? So you're not just an employee, with your blinders on doing your job. You understand the ecosystem positioning or where in the flow in the company the role fits. And then they understand where their employer fits in the insurance industry. If you work for a brokerage, you work for an MGA, you work for a carrier, how does that fit in the ecosystem of the insurance industry? And then we're going to go up another notch, because the modern insurance professional sounds like something out of the 1950s, right?
Yes.
The modern insurance professional. That person should also understand the role of insurance in the macroeconomic world. How does insurance do what it does? Whether for businesses or in people's lives. So they understand their job in the company, their company in the industry, and the insurance industry in the ecosystem.
So I serve 3 STEM designated programs, the FinTech program, Financial and Enterprise Risk, and our Business Analytics and Project Management programs. And so for our Financial Risk program, they come into our program and they're thinking banks and hedge funds, but a third of them end up in the insurance industry. Usually the investment branch, but they're working in insurance. So when I think of the modern insurance employee and talent, I think of the quants and the techies who have these programming knowledge, who are able to do the math, and are finding themselves in the insurance industry, but then loving it and staying. We took the approach that it's much more challenging to teach those quant skills than it is to teach the insurance industry. And there's so many insurance companies that have really great onboarding and training programs that can then provide that industry knowledge. We do have 2 courses within our program as electives that focus on fundamentals of insurance and then Insurtech, ecosystem and entrepreneurship. And we have a lot of students that take those courses. But there are more of our students that end up in the insurance industry than take those courses. So that's really what I think of. I think of these really talented, technologically savvy folks that are ending up in insurance that are lifelong learners. In one of the talks yesterday, someone mentioned that there's going to be more change in the next 5 years than there have been in the last 30. Our students understand this. They know things are going to be changing rapidly, and they're up for the challenge.
And I would say to that point about, anticipating, and I would say I worked for someone at one point, Liberty Mutual, and she used to say, we need to get to a place we don't just embrace change, we expect it and we embrace it, and I kind of added and when we stop changing, get worried. Because insurance exists in a world that is ever evolving, ideally trying to anticipate where do we need to be next from a risk, service, customer perspective, but if not, being able to respond as quickly as the things shift. And I think, to both your points about the modern insurance professional, I'm huge about they understand the why of insurance. And Laurissa heard me say that to your students last year about as you enter into the industry, understand the bigger picture of the purpose that you're serving. And as part of that, start understanding more of the elements of the ecosystem. So like within an agency, the different roles that could exist, and understanding the interactions with your carrier partners and then the customer, because you're kind of wedged in the middle of it all, and kind of understanding that larger lens, because when you understand that bigger picture, you start thinking about where there's a problem, how to maybe solve it differently. And just, again, having that, when I talk to people who are thinking about careers and career changes and all of that is, and I don't get credit for this phrase, but I don't remember who said it when I was at Liberty Mutual, but talking about your career as a jungle gym. And like your next best opportunity may not exist yet, or is somewhere over here off to the side, so keep your peripheral vision wide open. I think the modern insurance professional is just kind of ever mindful of maybe there's another place where I can add value that's, coming down the road in the next few years. And so, Audrey, you're an expert, in the industry and recruiting in the industry, and you've been doing this now for decades. And I know from our conversation, I've learned a lot from you. These prep meetings are great because you learn so much, even before you all get to hear it. I know you have a really distinct point of view based on experience about the whole aspect of job descriptions and job postings. And what you think about is, how do organizations need to rethink their approach to attract the talent they want to arrive and stay?
Yeah, thanks. How much time do we have? You've got a job description that you've designed for your own internal purposes, right? To tell, human resources or the head of operations, what everybody in the organization is doing. Here's the job description. That document has no business being a job post. A job description is a factual document. It probably often has legal implications. Like, it's an internal document. So when you post a job in the hopes of gaining applicants, you don't want some legal document hanging out there to dry, boring everybody to death. What you need in your job post is more akin to a job advertisement, and not overly salesy, but it is not identical to the job description. This is it's an attractant. It's what would an employee want to know before applying? Like, are you a company that is that values change and forward thinking? Are you just starting your journey, so there's a heavy but exciting load to carry for new employees? Do you specialize in a certain niche, or what is your culture like? Do you have, I don't know, team meetings at the beach? I'm from Florida. Sometimes these crazy examples come to me. But that's what you want in your job advertisement, which is your job post. And then when the applicants, the candidates, get to the interview stage, you don't spring the job description on them like a surprise. It's just the next level of information. So of course the post should relate, and you should decide what to write based on who you need, and you should decide how to write it based on who you are. If you're a formal organization, you're not going to start a job post with, hey, check out this cool opportunity, right? That's like way off tone. If you're Goldman Sachs, you're probably not going to start like that. But yeah, that's, like I said, there's a lot to dig into there.
Yeah.
But job description, job post, not the same thing.
Yeah, and you're looking to bring someone in for the long haul. You're looking to create your next population who will become your experienced tenured hires. So you're trying to give them that lens of who are we as a company, what do we value? We're heavily into community service. We're very focused on environment. Our clients, we focus on these types. So think about you maybe trying to appeal to someone who may not know a lot about insurance, and it may be an entry-level role. So you have this opportunity to share the truly exciting story about how critical insurance is to the world. And get people jazzed up about it. I don't know if I'd say insurance is sexy, but it's gosh darn important.
It's sexy when you understand it. You know?
I don't know if I can go there, but that's my generation talking. So Laurissa, you launched the FinTech program, the MBA program in 22, and so as you work with the upcoming graduates who are looking to land their job opportunities, what's your wish list on behalf of the students that would, make it easier for people to kind of find the fit to attract the students to the right positions?
Yeah, so agree with what both of you have said. I would say, first, I just want to talk about the industry in general, which I think, again, agreeing, there is a perception that insurance is kind of boring amongst our younger students. And so I would love for companies and the industry in general to talk about the why and the wow. Right, so why? I think when people call an insurance company, it's usually like on the worst day of their life, right? Like their house burnt down, they got into a car accident. But it's a net positive. And really speaking about that as an industry, not even just as like individual companies, I think is really attractive to our students. And then the wow being, you are using AI, you are using all of these programming languages. That's really attractive to our students as well, but I don't think is discussed as much. That would drive more interest into companies. But speaking specifically about job postings, I co-chair the National FinTech Organization, which is a consortium of universities that have FinTech programs, and we're building one for universities that have risk management programs as well. So I heard someone yesterday say, well, there aren't really schools that have risk management programs. And I have to say, that's not true. We're there and we all talk to one another and we talk about the challenges that we're seeing and how to better our curriculum and all of that. And together, one of the challenges that we all have seen is when our students go on to apply for jobs at companies, risk management and FinTech are not yet listed as degrees or majors. And there's not even a button to hit other and then type in that degree. So that's probably why you're not seeing those degrees. They're picking finance instead of FinTech. That would be one major change that I think would be really beneficial. I also think in the job descriptions, really showing the technology that are being implemented that they'll be expected to use, because they're attracted to that, as I said earlier, and that would really help kind of pick the right person in that role. And the third one's a little bit more challenging, but speaking to a little bit of what you said, if you need a single contributor, that's what they're going to do. They're going to be a phenomenal single contributor. Or if you need someone that's a team player and they're going to be bouncing from team to team or just kind of filling in gaps, we have those students as well. Sometimes they can suss that out in the interview process, but being really clear about the person you want in that role or need in that role would also be really beneficial.
Yeah, no, that makes so much sense. Yeah, absolutely. It's a dire need out there to have more education and focus on this, without a doubt. So we think about, when we're moving past the entry level, and again, as I mentioned, the research shows that, in the perfect world, we're all, when we bring in a beyond entry level person, we want, an experienced hire. But that can be hard. That can be hard to necessarily attract and recruit. What are each of your thoughts on kind of making sure that we're not taking too narrow a definition of what does experience mean? And maybe I'll start with you, Audrey.
Okay. My sweet spot of experience is in mid-career through executive. So I'm constantly looking for, quote, experienced people, because that's where I live. And we're in a unique time specific to that 5 years of experience, which is a common benchmark. You figure that's someone who's malleable enough but has enough background. Right now, in 2025, 5 years of experience means that person started in 2020, and we all remember COVID. So this is a very distinct time, but just something to watch for when you're crafting your job posts. If you want 5 years of experience, you're likely to get a very weird 5 years, right? People were laid off. People were working from home for the first time. People were having their first year repeated and repeated and repeated as they were forced, for many reasons, to join new companies. So although it's 5 years on the calendar, maybe it's 1 year 3 times. So just beware what 5 years today and for the next year or two might mean. And then my big push with my clients is to consider outside of the industry experience. And there I have a framework of nouns and verbs. Promise this won't be a grammar lesson, but nouns are the things you know. So do you know what a bordereau is? Do you know what a renewal quote is? Those are the nouns, right? People can learn nouns. They're pretty basic. My area of excitement is when I can introduce someone with relevant verbs to an opportunity. So if you're bringing on an operations manager, they might not yet know what a claim is, but they know how to manage entry-level staff from another industry. They know how to navigate workflow process from another industry. So my guidance in looking for experience is don't necessarily play matchy-matchy with the nouns, but look at the verbs and see if you can relate the verbs.
And I would envision if you find someone who maybe has been successful across a few different industries in the, say, like in a client executive role or customer service role, and you'd be like, demonstrated ability to learn, and maybe brings a slightly different perspective into your respective organizations. Anything, thoughts on that you have, Laurissa?
I mean, you guys answered that beautifully, so don't have that much to add, but I would love like some audience participation. By show of hands, how many of you like dreamed of working in insurance and that was always your goal? We've got, I think, one. How many of you kind of fell into insurance and now you're here?
Yeah.
Right? And was your first job in insurance? There's only a few. There's a few hands up, but not the vast majority. So I think that that's what you guys are speaking to. Like when we look at the industry today, these people are finding the insurance industry and then staying because it's a great career. But as that continues, what we think of as experience kind of needs to change.
And think about this, we've all stayed for a reason.
Yep.
There's something about insurance that speaks to our heart, speaks to our soul. Not meaning to sound metaphysical, but it does. We're here for a reason. Back to that job advertisement, think about why are you still here? There's something about insurance that caught you and you've stayed, and being sure that you can figure how to embed that passion when you're advertising to bring in someone into your organization. So Audrey, kind of the next challenging thing I want to kind of toss to you is, we kind of go from the looking for experience, like the nouns. How do you get to figure out, how can you suss out somebody's ability to change? And not just ability, but ideally they like change. That would be ideal. How do you find that when you're talking with candidates?
I listen. You should listen. And so, listen to what? What are you listening to? You're listening for content. What did they do? But you're listening for process, too. When they talked about this change came at my last job, and I hated it, loved it, thrived in it, welcomed it, was confused at first, but then you just do some active listening, and just like you would be fascinated in a conversation with someone who was teaching you about something you love, if you love wine or you love the Chicago Cubs, someone who's talking about those things, boom, you're really locked in, right? You should be that locked in to a person you're interviewing because they are the expert on them, right? And you should be fascinated by them because you're considering hiring them. You need to be really intrigued by what they're saying. So just lock in and listen.
Yeah, no, that makes so much sense. Yeah, and that's a growth mindset. I always encountered, it was great, what's the thing that you did and it didn't go to plan, and tell me more about that. And I realized that what they were listening to say is, what did I learn from that journey? They really didn't care about the thing itself. They wanted to demonstrate that I had taken something from that and I had applied it going forward in how I would tackle challenges in the future, either specifically in a more broad level. Laurissa, as you work with your students, how do you kind of help them to position, helping this audience to kind of know what to expect of the newer generation coming into the workforce, to demonstrate that balance of the soft skill, the hard technical skill, however we want to describe it?
So we do a lot of work in this. This would be my "do you have an hour" moment. One unique thing that we do is we take students to industry conferences And it serves two purposes. I'm based in Connecticut, so we are trying to actively create a talent pipeline into the insurance industry. And when they get to these conferences, they see that these insurance companies, the Insurtechs, are using they're using AI. They're using these programming languages that they really want to be using. And so then it becomes, well, it's not just Microsoft, Google, Amazon that we can apply our skills. It's all of these companies as well, and you kind of see that spark light up in their eyes. And so that's been a helpful approach. And it also helps them learn to network and tell a story about their resume. They get to practice doing their pitch. They get to see others networking, because I think networking is probably one of the number one ways you land a job. So it's just crucial. So it serves those two purposes, and I've seen students really blossom throughout that process. We also, if we are sponsoring students to go to a conference or a competition, require LinkedIn presence, so that they're building out their professional network and their professional self online. That's a requirement. And we've seen just such growth on that as well.
Yep.
We've got a career office that is sectored in verticals. So each career person focuses on a specific industry. And when they put our students, we have a platform called 1220, when they put their resume in that platform, which is reviewed, it's a different one if they want to tap into different industries. So there's a variety of ways. I could go on, but I think I'll leave it there, be mindful of time. There's a lot we do.
Thank you. So we're getting close to time. So kind of a round table call to action. What's kind of the parting thought you'd like to have people think about on the importance of resilience? How to think about it from both a hiring and a continuing professional development experience. How do you hire for it, and how do you foster it? Because, oh, by the way, the most resilient people in the workforce, Gen X. Why? Because the pace of change, and it's only going to continue to accelerate. Gen Xers have undergone from, when I came into work, it was paper folders, and we just started introducing mainframe systems. And now look where we are. So the pace of change in the world, in our lives, and in work has catapulted so much over the past 3 to 4 decades. So kind of like you have a lot of resilient people that you may not necessarily realize are already there that can be your mentors for others. But kind of Audrey, what would be your call to action?
Call to action to screen for resilience, to bring aboard resilience would be, oh man, I feel like I should rerun my listen. Listen and dig into who the people are who you are interviewing. If you give someone the chance to show you who they are, pay attention the first time, and I just mangled that Maya Angelou quote, but I think most of the room is with me on that. People who have, first of all, navigated the last 5 years in any dimension, as a student, as a parent, in the workforce, or caring for elderly parents, the last 5 years, a lot of it has been a lesson in resilience. So, maybe conversationally drill down on that. Listen to how they adapt to change in their life and in their prior jobs. And if they sound very stuck and cranky and blaming others, that's really not an adaptable, resilient person. That's kind of a curmudgeon. So yeah, beware the curmudgeons. That would be my practical advice.
And the curmudgeons can be 18 years old, by the way. Yeah, just saying, it's not just a generational thing. And Laurissa, your thoughts?
When I think about retention, and for this generation that's about to graduate, they're typically staying in roles for about 4 years, and they want to move up or out. So I would say being able to provide learning experiences on the job, whether that's onboarding them quickly through a training program, mentorships or reverse mentorship programs where they're learning from someone with more experience, but also potentially teaching AI and what they know about that to that person as well is really crucial. We were at a company visit, and one of their things was they were talking about someone who came back to the company. And there's companies where, like, if you leave the company, you're kind of dead to them. But they're thrilled. If we couldn't offer you that growth opportunity at that point in time, and you leave and you get it somewhere else, and then you come back, better, right? So maybe not thinking of retention of you have to be at that company for 20 years solid, right? You can leave, you can come back, and that still counts as a long career at that company. And then talking about kind of just upskilling your employees, because our students want to be lifelong learners. So I'm thinking of a company, this is Nassau Re, we have an Insurtech Discovery Summit hosted by UConn at a company. Meredith's been a part of all of them so far, where we talk about insurance challenges they're facing and the implementation of AI and machine learning. And it's open to all of the companies in that building as well, right? So it's a training opportunity to upskill your employees. So even if they're maybe not getting that next promotion, they're still learning, whether through mentorship, through these external programs. And that's in partnership with universities. So if you're interested in partnering with universities, feel free to contact me. I'm happy to partner with you or teach you how to best partner with universities in your local region.
Great. Thank you all very much. Thank you both. Appreciate the time.
Thank you.
Thank you.